Daft Punk are French electro-disco artists who dress like robots and make some of the catchiest pop songs in the world.
They are not only very popular in the mainstream in a newfound kind of way, they have been very well respected in the electronic community for a very long time.
Daft Punk, they know no boundaries, and they are continuously evolving.
Random Access Memories, nobody could have created something as full of fanfare as Daft Punk did. This was a perfect storm of so many things. It's their first album in 8 years. In the time that they were away, they put out the Tron soundtrack and everything, but in the time that they were away, everyone had basically discovered how amazing they were. Kanye, of course, sampling them on Stronger, definitely kind of put them more in the zeitgeist.
There's always mystery around Daft Punk. No one knows what they look like. They wear helmets all the time. And no one knew what this would necessarily sound like.
Every time they come back, there's all this anticipation. And then this time, Daft Punk did an amazing job themselves of sort of corralling the anticipation.
I think there was so much anticipation for Random Access Memory because it had been a long time since the last Daft Punk record. In the time that passed since the last record, the whole EDM movement grew up, you know, in some ways on the backs of a few records, including the previous Daft Punk record.
EDM, as it came to be called, became this huge phenomenon. Almost all of the artists who are big, successful stars today, to some degree, credit Daft Punk with inspiring them to start making music. Without Daft Punk doing anything, their legacy just grew and grew and grew, and you know, they're revered.
Imagine that your favorite band had not put out a proper album in 8 years and you were just chilling at Coachella and suddenly there is a video with them in it that's just like, hey, we're back. That would excite anyone.
They did a sort of genius, bit of teasing and promotion. It suddenly appears at Coachella and everybody goes insane and knew instantaneously what it was.
I was at Coachella and it was pretty insane when they came out and unleashed that video with Niall and Pharrell. It was definitely a moment.
Daft Punk took a live music festival where everybody is supposed to be excited to see all their favorite bands in the flesh and played a video that sort of became the most talked about thing.
Showing a tiny teaser trailer clip at Coachella that was not expected or announced or anything like that, that just sort of gave the idea that Daft Punk is doing something. And, the place went nuts and the digital universe went nuts.
Brilliant marketing.
You cannot deny that Get Lucky was huge. This song could not be avoided this summer.
I mean, that's the thing that had eluded Daft Punk, for the longest time was the real breakout smash single. And this did it. And, I did it, I think, with help from Pharrell and with help from Nile Rodgers, who laid down a great guitar. Once it caught, there was no stopping it.
It sounded like classic rock the day it came out.
When I was 15, 16, when I really started to play guitar, I definitely wanted to become a musician.
I mean, Georgio Moroder is one of the all-time greatest, kind of electronic producers who makes these incredible, ambient sounds, and he's incredible.
Georgio Moroder has this song on the Daft Punk album that I say that it's his song because he is the star of the show. It's called Georgio by Moroder. And it is just a vocal track of him talking about his life.
In Germany, in 69, 70, they had already discotheques. So I would take my car, would go to a discotheque.
He's speaking about his experiences of producing and just where he came from. He, for those who don't know, is a very famous Italian producer who produced Donna Summer, I Feel Loved.
they wanted to remind people, kids who are into EDM today, that without Georgio Moroder, there probably wouldn't be dance music.
Is the very argument for albums. Because that's the kind of thing that has no other place. It's not a single. You're not going to find it anywhere. You drop it in the middle of the album and it's this bizarre surprise. But it's what makes the album special.
Instant Crush, they are starting to work now from Random Access Memories. They just did a very interesting video for it. You know, it features Julian Casablancas from The Strokes. It's a really interesting song in the sense that Julian Casablancas is one of the best singers in rock as it stands right now. And they auto-tune his voice. If you listen to the album and you had no idea he was on it, you probably wouldn't think it's anybody famous. It's just, it could be anybody. So it's interesting that they would do something that isn't very obvious whatsoever, and that's how they'd use him. It's kind of just like Daft Punk to do something like that.
With some things, it's really hard to like predict like the rhyme and reason behind why they do what they do.
Daft Punk are sort of the godfathers of the modern EDM scene, and I think they, throughout the cycle of Random Access Memories, were trying to sort of distance themselves from a lot of the people who worship them.
Daft Punk make the kind of music that is timeless. It's so much of dance music is very ephemeral, and I think you see in the EDM that's happening that it's, you know, it's of a moment, it's of a feeling. And when you think of the people that Daft Punk first kind of came up with, you know, they're not really around anymore.
So Daft Punk came out at a time when, you know, it was called electronica. It was Daft Punk, it was the Propeller Heads, the Prodigy, it was the Chemical Brothers. All of those guys, when you hear them now, it's kind of like, oh yeah, remember the 90s? But Daft Punk have remained current because they write songs and they also don't allow themselves to be sort of like contained in a moment. And that's why people still care.
And I think a lot of people thought it was going to really embrace perhaps some of the aspects of contemporary dance music. And what's fascinating and controversial about this album is it did the exact opposite. I think that Daft Punk looked at sort of the lumbering beast of EDM that they at least partially helped create, and they decided that rather than help advance that, they were going to put it down and start over. And they go back to the roots of sort of contemporary dance music.
I don't think it's a dark horse because Get Lucky was such a massive hit. On the strength of that, you know, and this was a band that had a lot of respect, and all of a sudden their breakthrough single, you know, I think the single is going to be rewarded somewhere, some way. Will it carry the album? I think that's an interesting question, but it's a worthy album, that's for sure.
I don't think that Random Access Memories is the dark horse. I think that this album is everything people in the music industry love. It's fanfare, it's a huge record cycle, it's anticipation, it's an artist that's considered quality.
You know, there's all this talk about how music is such a niche culture these days, and like nobody agrees on one thing. And Daft Punk's Get Lucky, it was like that was a song we all heard whether we wanted to or not. And in this case, we mostly all wanted to hear it, and that was like kind of a sweet moment to all just agree on something and shut up and dance.